Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live. We've been going for 4 years now, haven't we? Is it 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
Yeah, remarkable. Absolutely remarkable.
Over 4 years, 4th of May 2021.
Amazing. And it seems like only yesterday. Unfortunately, Bertrand is on the golf course today, so he won't be joining us. Which means that you don't get the joys of having an introduction in French or Italian or Spanish or Flemish or Norwegian or whatever other languages Bertrand is fluent in. But it's the rest of us are as normal. So let's quickly go around the room and introduce ourselves. Tim.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And my name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Tracy.
Good morning, everybody. Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, proud partner of DLA Ignite. And I love the conversations about social selling because from a marketer's point of view, I think there's many things that we can learn as marketers.
So my first question is, I'm going to ask Adam something to do with the marketer's position.
Awesome.
We had a conversation with marketers this week, so hold that.
I have all of the opinions on it.
Good. Richard.
Good afternoon, everybody. Losing my voice here. Yeah, Richard Jones, Curate, another proud partner of DLA Ignite. I'm still a relative newbie to social selling. I did realise when I first engaged with the guys that I was definitely unconsciously incompetent. I had no idea that I didn't know what I was doing, but I'm now very much in the consciously incompetent stage. So definitely moving in the right direction.
A huge step forward. And I'm Adam Gray. I'm Tim's business partner and co-founder at DLA Ignite. And often on these shows we have guests. We haven't got a guest this week, so we're going to talk about social selling. It's what we do as a business, as you probably all know. This isn't a sales pitch, but we are going to share some of our experiences and our knowledge around this, because it's something that we feel very passionate about. In a world where everybody's shouting and trying to get more and more share of voice and more impacts of their outbound activities, whether that's by telephone or by advertising or by email or by whatever method they use, there's something to be said for trying to facilitate human interactions. You know, we all know the power of networking and of going to meetings and meeting people and you know, touching flesh with those people and getting to know them. But particularly nowadays, there's a fundamental problem with that, which is the huge cost of doing that. A, you've got to set up the event and somebody has to pay for that. And B, I've got to visit the event, which is a day out of my life to come to that event when I could be doing something else. And there's a huge element of chance there, because if I'm not in the room and you're not in the room at the same time and free to talk to one another, we're not going to meet, even though that may be a fantastic business opportunity for both of us. So social selling helps to bridge that gap. So I've got loads of questions that I want to go through, but you had one, you said, Tim.
Yeah, so I think the first question is, what do we define as social selling? Because I think that a lot of people think that when people send you a spam message over social, connect and then pitch, they think that's social selling.
Which we know it isn't.
And we know it's sending a spam message.
Yeah. So how do you define social selling, Tim?
So I define it as using your presence and behavior on social media to build influence, make connections, grow relationship and trust, which lead to conversation and commercial interaction.
So why is that different? And we're all on the same page here, but for the benefit of people watching, why is that different from me sending you a connection request or an email saying I'm the best I'm the best CRM system in the world, you should buy from me? Why is what you described different to that?
I think that the mistake that people make, and And it's very easy to make the mistake because everybody is doing the same thing. When everybody's in the room shouting, it's very easy to suddenly start shouting. And the mistake that people make is that they treat LinkedIn as a sales network, where you come to LinkedIn and basically tell everybody how great you are. So everybody basically is standing there shouting, saying, buy my product because we're great. And just the same as I always say to people, so if I walked up to you in the high street, you didn't know me, and I just said, would you buy a pension off me? Would you do that? And they'd say, no, of course I wouldn't. It's like, well, why wouldn't you? Well, I don't know you. Okay, so there needs to be a relationship, is it? Well, yeah, and I need to trust you. So it's the same on social media. You know, one of the things that we teach is the fact that societal norms, manners, the way that you talk to people, the way that you thank people are the same on the same in the analog world as the same as in the digital world. And so what the difference is that if you go to somebody and you show an interest in, well, first and foremost, you go to someone and you show an interest in them, what they're going to do is they're going to look at you. And when they look at you, they're gonna jump to a conclusion about whether they think they like you or trust you, because there's that fundamental, you know, if I come up to you on the high street to say, do you want to buy a pension and I smell, you're gonna say, no, not today. I'm rather busy. And so, you know, if I come up to you on LinkedIn and I smell of commission and I want to sell you something, what are you going to do? You're just going to say, no, I'm not busy. I'm not interested. And so there's a fundamental difference there. Otherwise, Tracy.
I mean, this is the thing that I think too is really interesting from a marketing point of view, and how most marketers are using social media, which is just posting content like it's a billboard, right? And so, okay, yep, I'm in my car and I drive by certain billboards when I'm going between my house and downtown Calgary. But on the internet, now this is like driving through a slammed forest of billboards that are coming at you so fast you can't like read them anymore. And so, yeah, you can put a billboard out there, but at the end of the day, if you're selling something that requires trust in order to buy, which is anything that has any kind of decent price point attached to it, then trust is required. And I've always been very confused by the fact that as humans, we go out into the world and we experience how we build trust with other people. What does that look like? It generally looks like more than one interaction. It looks like a meaningful interaction. What is a meaningful interaction? Me waving my brochure in your face, is that a meaningful interaction? We could count it as a meaningful interaction from a CRM point of view, but as humans, we know that that's not. And so if we just took a step back into our own experience and said, what feels good for me in terms of connection experiences, that's how I like to look at them, whether that's analog or whether that's digital, then I think we would have a lot more insights that we could tap into. We just get so overwhelmed by do this. You have to post on social media every day. You have to be on all of the channels. You have to have a website. You have to have a podcast. You have to be the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live. Right? Sorry, you can't. We would. But like, there's so much stuff, and then people get distracted by so much stuff. They forget, like, you know how to build trust with people. Why don't you just do that?
So that's a really interesting point, and that's a really good point around marketing and sales and relationships. You know what works. You know what you want to have done to you. So why do people find it so difficult to put themselves in the shoes of the recipient and behave in a way that they themselves would find attractive and engaging?
I mean, personally, and this has come up for me a bunch of times this week, I think it's based on personal confidence. The ability to say, I know how to build a relationship. I know how to communicate my product knowledge. I know how to nurture. I know how to solve problems. I know how to create connection. I know how to attract eyes, because we also have a bunch of people out there, solutions, quote unquote, solutions providers, who are trying to convince you that they know better than you how to do that. And like, one of the things I love about the DLA Ignite social selling methodology is this isn't about like two guys being like, we know what you should do, and here's all the things you should say, and here's the template for all your messages. It's a system that allows you to be yourself within the system. And so it's about tapping into, how would you build relationships? What would you say? How fast does it take for your industry to build? How many times are we throwing up roadblocks in our own experience because we think we have to post on social media every day? And break down the difference between, like, what does it look like to post on social media every day in a meaningful way for you and the people who are consuming your content, versus just doing it because someone told you to do it.
But I think it's not about social media, though. I think it's about people's interaction with other people. So Tim and I were in a meeting with the sales director many years ago, and whilst we were in the meeting, the phone rang. So this guy picks up the phone and he goes, I don't recognize the number. So he sends it to voicemail. I won't bother taking that. And then he
It was a cold call for those that don't understand the subject.
And then he proceeded to tell us why cold calling was the answer and not social selling. And we said, but do you not get the irony here that somebody just cold called you and you basically hung up on them, and you're telling your reps to cold call? That there must be a better way to get the conversation going. And I think that a lot of the challenge here is that people either they're unable to connect the dots. So I don't like that done to me, but it's kind of okay when I do it to someone else. And that's either because they can't empathize with the recipient of this stuff, or and I think that this is the big one, or they think that somehow the rules don't apply to them. So you're too busy to listen to my sales pitch, or I'm too busy to listen to your sales pitch. I've got so many things that I have to do every day, but actually you're going to want to listen to my sales pitch because my product's really exciting. And, the reality is that a brochure is a brochure, whether that's a physical brochure or an electronic brochure or a sales pitch or an advert or whatever. A brochure is a brochure is a brochure. And some brochures are good and some brochures are bad, but all of them use the same mechanism, which is, I'm going to try to catch your eye. And the problem is that I can't legislate for what you're going to find attractive. So, I've decided to wear a grey polo shirt today, and you might say, oh, that's a lovely colour, or you might say it's a horrible colour. And actually, I can't know that until, there's some kind of outcome.
So I got approached recently, and someone said that he said, I'm following the Gary V, so the Gary Vaynerchuk social selling method, which is to put 4 videos out per day. On LinkedIn. A lot of
content.
On LinkedIn. And I looked at his profile, and he's getting no engagement at all on his, because he hasn't done a number of fundamental things before he's putting out the content. And I just went back to him. I said, once you get tired of it, putting out 4 videos, and you want to have an alternative method that works, give us a call.
Yeah. So Yayan says, is the problem not the word selling? We have an expectation of how this feels and how it's conducted. In reality, nobody likes to be sold to. Absolutely.
But I would also say, like, if we define selling by all of the sales experiences we've ever had in our whole life, right? There are times when you've bought something where it didn't feel like you were being sold to.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And so I think when we think about this, that doesn't mean the person in the store or online or service provider isn't doing the activity of selling. So I think it's an interesting exploration of our own individual relationship with the word selling, because we could call it social connecting, but there's also a lot of social connecting that happens that doesn't end in a commercial business relationship. And when you're looking at building a business, at some point, something has to end in a commercial relationship. Otherwise, you're going to go out of business. And so I think, yeah, and it's just an opportunity, and anybody else watching, because I have this conversation with my entrepreneur friends all the time. Well, I just don't like to sell, except you really like to help. So why don't you just like go and help people? But at some point, you want people to pay you for helping them, right? So that is also selling. Yeah. Semantics.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think the nicest thing is where you have an interaction with somebody and then they ask to buy. So you don't actually have to sell. You have to obviously navigate the sale process. But I think so often, you know, we've been brought up on a diet of the boiler room and Glengarry Glen Ross and the Wolf of Wall Street, and selling is about making you spend money on something that you don't want to spend money on. In those instances, it's an unpleasant thing to be the recipient of, and we all have it when we get a phone call from a mobile phone provider or a different mobile phone provider telling us that they are aware that our contracts come up for renewal and they'd like to help us, and here's all of the things that I'm going to offer you. And trying to get those people off the phone is sometimes really difficult and quite a stress-inducing process. And I think that that often the word sales, I think Yayan's right, often the word sales has those kind of connotations. You know, it's an unpleasant experience, but actually it's Yayan says again, nobody likes to be sold to. Actually, I think you're right, Tracy. If it's done really well, it can be a lovely experience being sold to, because you don't feel that you think you're being helped into a place where the purchase makes perfect sense.
Right.
And you feel that the person has your back. Tim, sorry.
Yeah, so I was going to segue. So first of all, we're all going to wave to Andrew. Richard, you don't know this, but we waved to Andrew.
And
I'll wave,
and he
Andrew,
waves back.
I have no idea who you are.
So you had a call with some marketers this week, didn't you?
Mm.
So why don't you talk about that call that you had in terms of how you explained how social selling helped them?
Yeah. So this is a tech company that we're going to be doing some work with, and they have a strong sales function, and they also have a strong marketing function. And the marketing function, and I'm not speaking out of turn when I say this, is facing the same problems that every marketing function faces. That they have their processes, and they have their cadences that people that interact with their content are put onto this conveyor belt. And they said, and I'm quoting pretty much when I say this, that they had what happens is that they start to pursue people that have engaged with their content, that have visited a webinar or downloaded a white paper or downloaded a brochure or whatever. And it goes into, I think they said Gong is their tool that they choose. And, so they send an email on the Monday, and then they send an email on the Thursday, and then they send an email on the Friday, and then they try a telephone call on the Monday. And that persists until the target unsubscribes from their email. And that was the feedback that they gave. Not that it was all broken and it wasn't working, but that this is a challenge that they're facing. But I think that a lot of people in the marketing world are concerned about social selling, because when we talk about personal brand for individuals and we talk about individuals marketing themselves, it kind of steals some of marketing's thunder. And I think what's really interesting is that marketing in our view of the world, our view of the future of sales and outbound and stuff, marketing has a crucial role to play. Marketers creating content, analyzing what works and what doesn't work, refining messaging so that it's elegant and effective, that is a marketer's bread and butter. That's not a salesperson's bread and butter. So marketing need to help sales, the individuals within the sales department, achieve those objectives. Now, if you've got a company which has got, let's say, 1,000 people in, and every day those people post something on LinkedIn, let's say, and every day they get 200 impressions of that piece of content that they've posted, that's 1,000 impressions per person per week. That's 50,000 impressions per person per year. And there's 1,000 people, that's 5 million impressions. Now, any marketer would like to get that degree of visibility of their content that's going out, particularly if it's content that's going out through a non-branded channel. So this is a fantastic piece of advice that's come from Richard, a guy that I know and like and trust, as opposed to that's come from, to pick a company at random, IBM, which is a company that, well, clearly they're going to be trying to sell me something because they're a company. And that was a message that I think for this marketing team, they heard that and they just went, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You know, there's a yin and yang that we need to provide some value to salespeople, which is giving them our expertise and help in our sweet spot. This is what we're really good at. This is what we know. This is our bread and butter. And the work that they do is going to, we'll pick up this point.
We will definitely
in just a moment.
Yeah.
That sounds very The Matrix, by the way. Agents are coming,
doesn't it? But there's something in it for the marketer as well. You know, marketers have for years been going to the senior leadership team saying this campaign was a success because we got 150,000 views and we got 7,500 pieces of interaction on this and we got X number of click-throughs to the website or whatever. So all of those stats are things that are worth it. And I remember Tim and I were on a seminar some time ago, and from our perspective, the thing that is most important is interaction. And the reason that interaction is most important is because if somebody clicks a like or comments or shares your post, you know exactly who that person is, and then you have a reason to have a conversation with them. Whereas impressions are nice to show you that you know the number of people viewing it's gone up or they're roughly in the right place, but there's nothing I can actively do with that information. It's just a nice to have. And this person said, yeah, the reality is, though, that impressions, the visibility is the bit you pay for. If you go to Google, that's the bit you pay for. You know, you pay to have your stuff seen. So that is also a really valuable thing, not perhaps in terms of here's how that feeds into the sales funnel, but absolutely in terms of here's 100,000 views that I don't have to pay for that I previously did have to pay for. So actually there is value in both of these things. And so marketing and sales need to very much kind of work together, because what we know is that if you take a piece of company content, no matter how well written it is, no matter how targeted it is, and you share it onto your timeline, nobody cares. If you take a picture of you smiling, holding your new dog that you've just got, everybody cares, whether they like dogs or not. And the point is that's where the win comes. The win comes because the person that would never engage with a piece of your content, which is business related, for fear of the fact that you'll pounce on them and try to sell them something. We've got a new product. Oh, I'll drop a like on that. Bring. You like the post about the new product. Can I come and demo it to you? They don't want that. When you've got a dog, they go, like, because I've got a dog as well. And then you say, have you got a dog? And they say, yes. And now you're having a conversation. You've got exactly the same outcome that you wanted. And it's just a case of moving that conversation from dogs to you to what do you do to here's what I do.
On that point, Adam, I always think that dogs are a tremendous conversation starter. It's amazing actually how just walking your dog, you will engage in conversation.
It's
with people.
supposed to be a way that you can pick up your
future
your sweet spot
partner.
Yes.
Well, but actually, I don't want to put a downer on it, but I had my dog put down this week, so I've actually.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I've got nobody to go and talk to now when I go out for a walk. Because if I walk on my own, people will think I'm odd. So.
they'll think
Hey,
on the
Richard,
phone.
I walk on my own, and I'm pretty sure people think I'm odd, but I do it.
But yeah, but I think that's, I mean, I've thought about it quite a lot, the whole sort of concept of, generating or creating conversations, because, any form of B2B sale of any significance is always going to involve some form of conversation. You don't just sort of transact, you very much engage and build a relationship. And I think that's what we come sort of often miss the point on, that what you post on LinkedIn really is about provoking that conversation. It's not just a sort of making noise and effectively, I guess, sort of pumping out what is corporate advertising. You want to have the conversations, and the conversations come from the unusual and the offbeat and the interesting, not from the sort of generic stuff that everybody else is pushing out, because that just
On that point, so
Yeah, here we go.
I've just been
Good
on
segue, Richard.
just been onto LinkedIn, and this is Mike Svetlik has left this comment. So thank you, Mike. Maybe agents are coming. This is we are currently, I believe, staring into the abyss from this perspective. And the reason I say that is, deploying agents to do this is a very risky business. If you deploy agents on LinkedIn to do this, you very likely can get yourself banned. That's really bad. I've got 15,000 connections on LinkedIn. If I'm banned, not kind of just paused or switched off for a week, but if they ban me, I'm back to zero again. I have to start creating all of the content, creating all of the credibility, getting all of the recommendations, growing the network, all of that stuff again, which will take me months or years, or I might just go, I'm going to retire now because there's simply no point. I've got 15, 20 years worth of equity in that profile that's now gone. So that's the first thing at an individual level, and why agents are not a very good idea. The other thing is that social networks work on the basis of reciprocity. I go to a social network and I post content in order that I can sell you something. You are there possibly because you're going to try to sell me something. And that's how every interaction between any two people on social networks, for the most part. The only reason I'm there is because there's an opportunity to sell. The only reason you're there is because there's an opportunity to sell. And the problem is, as we start to replace people with bots, we get to the situation where there's no point in me going to social networks anymore because there are no people there. There are simply bots that are trying to sell to me. So I'm not going to go there as a customer because I'm not going to be able to go there as a seller because there are no people left. And I think that we'll see a similar thing unfold to what we've seen with email. Before the days of email, there was a limit to how many mails you could send to people. There was a print cost, there was a fulfillment cost, there was a mailing cost. There was all of these associated costs, which meant that you needed to choose your targets very carefully. It's going to cost you £1 or $1 per letter to get that onto people's doormats, which meant that if I'm looking for bald men, I'm clearly not going to send this letter to Richard or to Tracy because they're not within the sweet spot of the market. When email marketing arrived, so we've got design cost, which we had before. We've got no fulfillment cost, no print cost, and no distribution cost with email. So therefore, people, rather than saying, where's the win? Well, the win is that now when Tim says, I've shown up at the digital download and I say, oh, he's wearing a sort of salmon-coloured polo shirt, I can send an email that says, attention people in salmon-coloured polo shirts, and Tim will see it and he'll go, oh, that's me, I better read that. Rather than that, though, I just use it as a platform to send the same email to everybody. And people talk about hyper-personalization, but the ship has sailed because people don't read emails anymore. I get 100 emails a day. And the problem with that is, Anybody that I don't know is consigned to trash straight away because I don't want to get to know them because I haven't got time. And B, some of the people that get consigned to trash are emails that I should be reading from people that I know, but they're buried under a mountain of stuff that I don't want. So email has become a broken method for delivering stuff now. And the beauty about being in an agent-free environment is that I get to engage with an individual human being and see whether or not that is a person that there's some chemistry with and there's an opportunity for us to work together.
There's couple of things. I think that from an AI perspective, we know, and it's happened 6 months, maybe a year ago, that people are dropping from search to using AI to basically ask for the answers. And there's lots of research out there that shows that the only people that are denying it are the SEO experts. So we know that people are using AI. We know that it's impactful. If you look at some of the thought leaders out there, what they're talking about AI, there's a likelihood that we will have some sort of AI teammate. But if we turn it around and we ask buyers, what are you going to do? Well, first and foremost, they want to hide from sellers, because that as soon as you basically show yourself, you're just a piece of meat and you just turn into a line on a CRM system. And everyone rings you up every month saying, are you going to buy something? And so what we do is that we hide. So if we look at Kerry Cunningham's research, the average B2B enterprise, and this is based on data, the average B2B enterprise is anything between 12. So the buying cycle is between 12 and 18 months. The sales cycle is 3 months. And so, and this has been backed by 2 different people doing 2 different bits of research. So Outreach have done the average sales cycle. So we know that the buying cycle is where people go out and do, we have a meeting, the payroll system's not working. What do we do, Tracy? Well, Tracy says, I know somebody in WorldPay or something, and I'm going to give them a call. And Adam says, well, I know somebody in Oracle. And Richard says, I'm going to go on the internet and have a look. So this whole thing takes place on social beforehand, but we actually don't go and talk to the salespeople until that very short 3-month piece. The other thing that I wanted to say, which is a piece of advice, the one thing that I remember from the event that we attended yesterday, which was a very clever techie guy who was talking about AI and where to deploy it. And he said, when you're going to deploy AI in the world, do it to the boring things. Don't do it on any customer-facing things. You will regret it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I just want to remind people, how does it feel for you when you are interacting with an agent?
Yeah.
You have an app and something doesn't work and you have to interact with an agent and the agent can't solve your problem. Does that feel good for you? And
so you're going to go to the board and say, we got a new payroll system, have we? You never told us that. Well, I put the company's bank account details into the agent and it went and bought one. I mean, really? Is that going to happen? Of course not. There's going to be some sort of conversation, isn't there? And I've spoken to a lot of people, and I deliberately talk to people who are younger than me, and I say, if you had an option to put an AI agent and give it to your credit card details and for it to go and buy stuff, will you sign up for that? And not one single person has said yes.
So we've got some great questions or comments. So Andrew, is impressions a barometer for seeing how many interactions your post creates, or is this just something that LinkedIn thinks people want to see?
To answer this question, there was someone who approached me who told me they could get me 30,000 impressions on every single one of my posts. And I was like, let me go see how her content is performing. So I went to her profile, and because you can't see other people's impressions, but assuming that she's doing what she's selling and getting all of these impressions, her engagement rates were like 1 like, 2 comments. I was like, so you're telling me 30,000 impressions is supposed to get you 2 comments? Because I can get 300 impressions and get 2 comments. Right? So I don't know that particularly answers the question, but it's just being, like Adam mentioned earlier, it's not terrible as a barometer to see what's happening, right? Like, are you getting more impressions on your content? Are you getting less impressions on your content? Is there specific content, like themes that you post that get more impressions, which means the platform is pushing them out in front of more people? It's not bad to know, but it is also important to look at the relationship between impressions and engagements. And there isn't it doesn't by nature exist. Just because you get more impressions doesn't mean you have more engagement.
Yeah. So I think this is an opportunity for a shout out for Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Good to see
look
you
out
again.
for It Happens, but safety matters. So yes, that I'm sure will be a great newsletter.
So Richard, just so you know, Mark tells jokes in the usually tells jokes in the comments.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I
this is jokes in the loosest.
It did draw a wry smile.
With a small
quote unquote jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Talisha.
Yes.
Hi, Talisha.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be about building relationships. I think that building that familiarity is the key to being successful on social, and indeed in business. People don't spend money with people that they don't know, don't like, and don't trust. It's a well-known.
That's not completely true, because I bought a BMW from a BMW salesperson who I didn't like.
I bet you made him suffer for that, though.
No. I know, but so yeah, I'm just being.
I think there is. I mean, we talk about the no like trust factor in marketing all the time, but the piece of that I love that Talisha shared was accept advice from a familiar source.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's also people that I have trusted based on their level of expertise that I don't necessarily like. Now, will I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a solution from someone that way? Probably not. But if I think this is also, we haven't really touched on this yet, is the demonstration of expertise through this whole process. It's not just like showing up to show up and like be in someone's face. It's to be helpful, to provide helpful things. Yeah.
So here's an interesting question from Living Aesthetic. How can early stage startups effectively use social selling to build brand awareness without a large marketing budget? I always think that it's really interesting, because when we talk to companies that are thinking about social selling or thinking about using social selling, oftentimes some of the feedback that we get is, well, we've tried it already and it doesn't work. And you only get one chance to make a first impression. So our general advice around this is that you need to make your profile look as compelling, interesting, friendly, and approachable as you possibly can. Because when somebody lands on it, they're going to jump to a conclusion about whether or not you are somebody that they would want to do business with, or somebody that they would want to interact with, or somebody that they would want to remember. So you need to make it as easy for people to remember and engage and like you as it's possible to do. You need to connect to the people that you want to influence over time, because if you've got 100 connections and they're all in the wrong place, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to interact with people that can buy your stuff. If, however, you've got 100 connections in the right place, then everybody within your network that sees the stuff that you post, you will be showcasing yourself in front of those people. And then lastly, you need to have a content strategy. And in its simplest terms, there are 3 kinds of content you need to share. You need to share content that shows that you understand your specialist subject. We're in the social selling world, therefore we share content about social selling. We share our expertise with our audience so that the audience can see that we can walk the walk as well as talk the talk. The second area where people need to share content is they need to share content which resonates with their desired market. If you want to sell into the manufacturing industry, then sharing content which talks about challenges that are being overcome in pharmaceutical or travel or leisure, actually that doesn't resonate with the audience that you want to talk to, because we all know that when you go and pitch to a company, one of the questions they inevitably ask you is, have you ever worked with a company like us before? Because they want to see that you understand their pains. Even though that may not be relevant to what you do, they still want to know that you understand their pain. And then lastly, you need to share that personal content. And we had a comment from somebody here. Social media started out as being mostly cat and food pics. Yeah, cat and food pics still have their place. And not just cat and food pics. But at the end of the day, there needs to be the non-challenging thing that people can, and it may not be cat and food pics, it may be travel pics or family photos or activities or whatever, but ultimately it has to be something which makes somebody not afraid to engage with your content, and that is unlikely to be business.
Just to say, DLA Ignite has never spent $1 on marketing.
No,
we've not bought an ad. We've never made a cold call. We don't have an email list. We've never sent spam emails. We've never spent money on paid media or ads. We never have in that 8.5 years that we've been business. So can you be successful and do it on a zero marketing budget?
Yeah,
we're the reference site for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, like, I'm a marketer. I do social selling. I don't do paid marketing. And I think it's, again, one of these things where people think, in order to have a successful business, I have to do paid marketing. And I don't want to pretend, because I think there are benefits to doing some paid things. I have a LinkedIn Sales Navigator membership, right? That is paid. So if you want to go big and scale it, then there's some cost there. But also, if you're looking at a LinkedIn Sales Navigator membership for $120 a month versus spending $800 a month on digital ads, right? Like, and $800 a month on digital ads would be a very tiny budget, right? So like, you're cutting that in a quarter and getting much more impact. So I think it's important to look at, when you have a small marketing budget, how are things delivering in a meaningful way, instead of just checking a box of I did a thing.
Yeah. So this absolutely nails it, this comment. Thank you. Yeah, agents shouldn't replace relationships. Authenticity is the key. And yes, AI and agents definitely have a place in the back office, you know, helping to speed the drudgery. The danger that we always see, though, is that people oftentimes do not want to do the work necessary. So that could be that you hire an agency to write your copy for you for the post that you want to do, or you hire an assistant to take over your profile to post stuff and interact with people. That's never worked in our experience. What has worked is where people swallow hard and invest the time in doing these things themselves. And absolutely, agents enable you to free up the time to be able to focus on the stuff that you do customer facing. For you to use an agent to write your content for you, or an agent to or an agency to write your content for you, or an assistant to post on LinkedIn on your behalf, is rather like you sending an assistant to go to a networking event when you should be meeting chief executives and saying, well, I haven't got time, I'm too busy, so I'll send this person in my stead. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, it also sort of marks you out as somebody who doesn't really know their stuff. You know, if you happen to rely on somebody else to write stuff that's compelling about what it is you're supposedly selling, then you're kind of you're missing the point a bit, aren't you? I would have thought. It's just a personal opinion, but I think, you know, most selling comes from, you know, the sort of the personal relationship. It comes from the heart, and it comes from the trust that you kind of emit by knowing your stuff. Getting somebody else to doing it, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So Mark, our resident jokester, I once told a joke so bad the audience started a support group. He then follows that up with his next comment saying, nothing wrong with a salmon-coloured polo shirt, looks very smart on the right person. I can't help feeling that there's another line to be delivered
Well,
here, isn't there? Because that's very unmark-like.
I think it's delivered. It's the back end
delivery.
of the compliment, isn't it?
Are there any other fish-coloured shirts out there?
Well, I'm sure there are.
A mackerel-coloured shirt, perhaps.
Here's an interesting one. Will the recent business hacking events affect how businesses think about how they show up on their online platforms? I think what's interesting about that, certainly for me, is that a lot of the recent hacking events have all been back office hacks. It's been data breaches and e-commerce sites going down. It hasn't been anybody taking over the customer facing part and hacking that yet.
Well, I guess if the e-commerce bit's being taken down, then that is an essential customer interface into the business. But I don't necessarily think anything sort of around that has a sort of a social relevance, really. I think it's just the nature of the way businesses are protecting themselves.
Well, and I mean, like, if we look at the concept behind a deep fake, right? I think there is a fear for people putting out specifically audio and video content, because now there are tools that can take that and deep fake you to do a thing. I mean, we also have to think about what is the ROI for a hacker. Right. So if somebody is going to go through all of the work to deep fake something, they're probably going to deep fake somebody like Elon Musk or Donald Trump or another world leader or a big business owner.
Too late. They're already deep fakes.
Yeah. But this is what I mean. So like we have this irrational fear. And I think especially like if you're creating a startup, if you're a small business owner, right? Like, I mean, yes, the tools now are out there for that potential to exist, but the likelihood of it existing, and as well, I want to talk about, because somebody used the word authenticity, and that's kind of my jam. So when you are out in the world creating authentic brand experiences for people and you get deep faked, people know it's a deep fake because they know you, right? Know, like, trust. They know who you are, and they're like, this feels weird.
This is a great comment from Siddharth. I'm still amazed at the number of people online who try to pitch for business but don't have an updated social media profile, picture or bio. It's a pretty basic red flag. It's staggering, isn't it? Because the natural default position for everybody these days is if somebody approaches you or you're introduced to somebody, even if you meet them face to face, the first thing you do is check them out on LinkedIn. In a business context, you check them out on LinkedIn and see what it is they do, what they post about, who else is in their company, all of that stuff. So to not have that in place seems ludicrous. And Mike, again, how do CMOs get hired in 2025 without a LinkedIn profile picture? Yeah, absolutely.
There was someone recently said you need to have this person on the podcast. They're a PR person. I said, okay. So when I looked at their LinkedIn profile, they had 459 connections. They were in there. They were about the same age as Tracy. It's like, how can you be PR? Because the average person on LinkedIn has 930 connections, and they'd only posted twice, ever in their lives. It's like,
because that says PR person to me.
Yeah. How can and it's like, you need to talk to this person. Yeah, but how can I'm gonna so I made a decision not to ask her to come on this show because of the fact that she's only got 459 and she's only posted twice, even though the person said she's a great PR person. She can't be.
But she should be buying your service.
Well, of course she can. She can, but it's like we make it's not just jumping to a conclusion. We make decisions based on it. There's a famous, I've not seen it for a long time. There's a person that does LinkedIn influencer training on LinkedIn, and she's not a LinkedIn influencer.
Yeah, but I saw I wrote a post about it the other day where somebody had said about how they were a LinkedIn social trainer, and they had approached somebody and said, I can show you how to do it. And the person had looked at their profile and said, well, that's not very impressive, is it? And they said, I'm too busy doing other people's, making them successful. And it's like, no, it's either important or it isn't. If it's important, you need to walk the walk. Nowhere is there a better opportunity for you to show how good you are on a social network than on your own profile on a social network. And that's
Drink your own Kool-Aid, I believe it's called.
Yeah. But it's like you if I'm helping you, Tracy, create a compelling brand, your boss might say, I don't want you saying that sort of thing, or you might feel constrained by the company brand. But if it's you and your own profile, there is no excuse for you not to put yourself forward exactly as you want people to see you. And we got some great comments.
There's some great comments
from people saying, yeah, this is just
go on.
No, here we go. Wondering the same thing. Sadly, marketers tend to be pretty bad at marketing themselves, especially online. Yeah, it just is.
Tove's comment is, problem is also that in B2B marketing, that marketing equals advertising, where marketing is all tactical and strategic things you do generate more revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, but again, in the B2B world, advertising is very well. In fact, any world, advertising is very glamorous. You get to go on photo shoots, and you get to meet interesting people, and you get to loads of kind of promotional merchandise, and spend loads of money on media and all of this stuff. The fact it fails to deliver, certainly in the B2B world, it fails to deliver any measurable impact on your sales these days.
So Yogesh Chavda basically has made a comment. I also get at least two to four invites on LinkedIn. When you check their profile, there's someone checking profile, you can see the account was open 10 years ago and the profile pic was updated 1 month ago. And basically it's probably a stock photo and it's clearly a deep fake and it's a fraudulent account. I agree. There's a question there from Aram Rathor, which basically says, if someone fumbles the first impression in social selling, is there a way to recover it, or is the opportunity always lost?
Yeah, easy enough to recover. I think that the key thing here is that you just need to make sure that you're always doing it better than you were before. So if I approach you and my profile is really useless, I've got no content on it at all, and you think this person's an idiot and I don't want anything to do with them, as long as you don't actually block me, there's nothing to stop me making my profile better and then a month later sending you another connection request with a fantastic profile that makes me look like I really do know what I'm talking about. And I think the key thing to remember is that we're all busy. I have better things to do than remember somebody who hasn't impressed me and invest any of my time and effort in doing that. And it's like when we say to people about, you must publish content. It's one of the cornerstones of being successful in this space. And they say, what happens if I make a mistake and it goes viral and everybody laughs at me? So don't flatter yourself, because for the first year, no one's even going to be glancing in your direction. You have to earn the right for people to point and laugh at you, and you haven't earned that yet. And it's the same with your profile. So yes, you absolutely can climb back from not having a great profile and not making a good impression.
And Andrew Tlessa says, and he's quite right, people will allow for mistakes, and repeated mistakes is a problem. I have a mate who has a very successful music YouTube channel, and he gets more responses, more engagement on the videos where he's not edited out the ums and ahs and the, because he's more, it's more
authentic, isn't it?
It's more authentic.
Yeah. So and we are pretty much out of time. So Ruben Hughes says,
I love a Hughes. Thank you, Ruben.
No relation. When's the best time to send a follow-up after a face-to-face? As quickly as possible. And the reason for that is that you can't remember who you met at an event 3 months ago. You can remember who you met at an event earlier today. So best to follow it up, strike while
The
the
next
iron's
day,
hot. Yeah, as quickly as you can. Send a connection request saying, hi, it was great to meet you yesterday at the event. Love to catch up and chat more about it, or whatever. Because remember, in the B2B space, success comes from conversations. So everything you do on social is about getting a conversation with somebody. That's where this bit of the world finishes for us. Everything that comes after that is about sales. So we are at time. What a fantastic comments question.
Thank you so much for everybody and all the comments and the jokes, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep them coming.
There was a sign-off joke from Mark, wasn't there?
If you go out to buy a pink shirt and the salesman offers you a salmon shirt, do you think something fishy is going on?
It's not pink, it's salmon. I'm just swimming against the fashion current. The man of many puns. So thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you.
You've been a fantastic audience, obviously a fantastic panel, but then they're my buddies and colleagues, so they're always a fantastic panel.
Have you sorted out the QR code?
I have, and I was just about to show everybody. Yeah. So if you would like to be a guest on our show, to share some of your expertise and your knowledge, to share a viewpoint on something, or just be part of the fun, then please click. Oh, that's the one I want, isn't it? Yeah. It's not quite as professional as when Bertrand did it, but it is at least a QR code. Yeah. So down here, scan the QR code, and please take a slot and come and join us. We'd love to have new guests on, and this is never, we hope, a sales pitch. This is always about sharing interesting viewpoints, trying to entertain you, the audience, and to share some expertise that we or the guest of the week might have. So thank you all very much indeed. I hope to see you all again next week, as does